it becomes a file on my machine. Gavel-san.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order for online presenters and introduce our fine president, distinguished Toastmaster David Carr.
All right. Welcome everybody to Online Presenters Toastmasters. We're not only where leaders were made, we're where you come to learn skills for better webinars and online meetings. And to further that mission, we do have a number of educational programs coming up, some extra workshops. So next week, instead of our regular meeting, we'll be having in Johnny Campbell. He's an accredited speaker. He's very accomplished. I've seen him present. He was our conference master of ceremonies for District 47 a little while ago. He does give webinars as part of his program. And so we're going to have him talk about how the way he presents online is different from what he might do in person. John Hayden is somebody I followed for a number of years. He's the author of Facebook Marketing for Dummies and very much an authority on online marketing and fundraising, particularly for nonprofits. But one of the ways that he runs his practice is to do a weekly Facebook Live program. And we're going to have him come in and talk a little bit about how that has evolved over the years. I'm pretty sure it used to be a YouTube or Google Hangouts on Air program that he switched over to Facebook as a place he could get better engagement. Darren LaCroix, you may know, is one of the world champions of public speaking from a few years ago. He also runs an online speaker program, and we're going to have him in. Cheryl Rausch, which Carol Prahinsky helped us line up for January 22nd. We're still fine-tuning exactly what that program is going to be. In fact, Cheryl has very nicely asked to get your feedback. So we're going to be sending out a survey we'd like you to fill in about what you would like to see, what your interests are in presenting online. And I did also want to mention that Johnny Campbell, the program for next week, he is somebody who also makes some money off of his online presentations. And so this is the money slide at the end where he talks about the program that you can buy in. Apparently he has been fairly successful with actually making some money with speaking and presenting online. He told me it was maybe about a third of his income, so it's significant and important. I do want to mention that this meeting will be recorded. The recording feature should be active right now. So we may use some stills and excerpts from the video as part of our public relations and social media outreach. So if you're shy, maybe you don't want to be here, but we hope you'll stay. And we can make exceptions on request. If something goes horribly wrong during our program, we can get rid of that video. We want to thank RingCentral for allowing us to use the RingCentral meetings platform at no cost. It's integrated with a number of their other programs, and they do want to let me know that they are the #1 cloud communications platform for businesses. We do suggest that you use a headset or earbuds, and a desktop microphone is what I use, but something to try and prevent audio feedback, background noise from coming into the feed. Also mute your mic when it's not your turn. From time to time, we may mute everybody's mic, but you can unmute yourself by clicking that button in the lower left-hand corner. You can also turn your video feed on and off if you need to. There are a couple of major modes in this program. There is the gallery view where you see everybody, and there is the active speaker view. So those are the two that you need to toggle back and forth from, depending on what it is that you want to see. If you decide you want to become a member, we do ask you to come to at least 2 meetings as a guest. And on your second meeting or anytime thereafter, you'd make a 1 to 2 minute speech about why you want to join, what you can contribute to the club, and so on. We are an advanced club, so if you haven't given at least 6 CC speeches, or 6 speeches in the basic Toastmasters program, then the officers have to vote to make an exception, which we may do if you have other professional experience. With that, let us do it. I'm going to introduce your Toastmaster of the day, who happens to be me. And we will get started with our lineup for today. Let's see, I have some helpers to keep this meeting on track. We have our R counter, Arlene. Arlene, can you explain what the R counter does?
Yes, I'll be listening carefully and catching all of your filler words, ahs, ums, ands, you knows, anything that you don't need to be saying. Don't be afraid to pause.
Thank you, Arlene. We also have a timer, who is Mahi this evening. A timer turns out to be one of the more challenging roles in this club, actually, to make sure you get your message across. How are you going to do it, Mahi?
So I have gotten 3 different cards, green, and then yellow, and then red. And at the timeout, when it is red, I'm also going to ring a bell. So I would like to know the time of the speeches, because I did see in the agenda, one of the speeches was 8 to 10 minutes. The other one was a little longer. So before you start the speech, please let me know, so I'll accordingly time you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, let's mention that. Let's see. The first one from Norman will be 8 to 10 minutes, but it's actually plus a 3 to 5 minute question and answer period. And then Jim Dent will be doing a 5 to 7 minute speech, so a standard Toastmaster speech. Okay. Let's see. We didn't line up anybody to be grammarian, so I think we're just going to skip that for today, unless we have an immediate volunteer. Our watcher is Lou Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I will be watching you and you and you and you and everyone to see how well you do on camera. Now, that doesn't mean you can occasionally move around, because it's impossible for any of us to sit here for 1 hour straight without moving. But too much distraction is distracting to other people speaking and doing things. We'll be watching to make sure that you look fine on camera, good background, and that you're not overly distracting with your body length, Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay, I'm going to click the mute all button because somebody was typing or something in the background. So just please unmute yourself if you do need to introduce yourself or your role.
I'll be happy to be grammarian. And my role, David, is that okay?
Yes,
okay,
please.
My role as grammarian is to listen to sentence structure and words that may not be appropriate in the sentence. So if you're misusing a word, I'll try to catch it. And if you put your comma in the wrong place, I'll try to catch it.
All right.
That was my humor. It's terrible, I know. Thank you.
See, I had John Quick down as chat monitor, but he is not here. Lou, do you think you could double as chat monitor in addition to being watcher?
Of course, Dave.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. The man who makes it happen.
I
That's
have a
what we like.
suggestion, if I
Yes.
may. We have a couple people interested in becoming members. Would we like them to have the opportunity to be a watcher?
Do we have a volunteer? People who are visiting?
Okay, never mind.
Maybe my explanation.
The watcher is like a body language monitor, but also you're watching for other visual, such as use of slides or special effects, anything visually that comes through the screen. So what they do, good and bad, just sort of like what the eye counter does to let people know when they could improve.
And to be clear, there is a need for a second watcher?
No, I think the suggestion was that whoever takes on the role would then free up Lou to just be the chat monitor. I would suggest
Okay.
not you, Carmen, because you will be speaking later in this meeting. If
Right.
somebody else doesn't get the opportunity, that might be good.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. I'm sorry, Carmen, did you want to give your I want to join speech tonight? Is that why you're going to be speaking later?
Yes, I will give it.
Oh, okay. All right. I wasn't clear on that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Let's see, we do also have an opening for a vote counter if somebody can step forward into that role. Johnny, could I
I'm
draft
happy to
you
have a
as...
go at that.
I'm sorry? Scott
I'm happy to have
Johnson?
a go at that.
Scott
Yep.
Johnson? Okay. So the way we do voting is people, you can send a private message to Johnny, excuse me, to Scott Johnson. Scott Johnson will be our vote counter, and we'll break any ties if they should arise. All right. With that, I believe we are ready to begin with our speeches for the evening. We have Norman Dow. First off, will be giving from the technical presentations manual, project number 2, the proposal. And the title is, I'm sorry, Norman, help me with the title. Masters in
Entrepreneuring.
Okay. All right. And his introduction is, many Black Christians have a profound sense of a call to create an organization or movement that makes a difference, but they don't know how. This is a proposal to the board of the directors of the National Black Evangelical Association to establish a graduate program degree designed to address that deficiency. And when Norman and I discussed this in advance, he said he wants you to put yourself in the position of being one of the officials he's directing his comments to. So imagine that you are a member of the board of directors of the National Black Evangelical Association, and we'll all do our best to imagine that as best we can. Norman, you're on.
Okay. First of all, am I sharing my screen?
Not yet.
Not
So
yet, okay.
that share screen button is in the middle and the bottom.
David, before we get started, because we had some changes on the agenda, am I evaluating Norman or am I evaluating Jim?
I think we're just going to go in order. So,
Because Norman sent me his paperwork. That's why I'm asking.
oh, okay.
So I have all his stuff. Christian,
well-
are you okay evaluating Jim? Okay, that's what we're going to do. I just want to make sure we're not both evaluating Norman.
Excellent. Thank you, Lois, for disambiguating.
Thank you, Christian.
Okay. David, am I sharing my screen yet? I cannot tell.
Still, no. So you click that green button in the bottom,
Okay.
and it gives you an opportunity to share your whole desktop or one particular screen. So you need to click on the screen that you want to share.
Okay. Did that do it?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Masters in Entrepreneuring. First, when I'm speaking to you as members of the board of directors of the National Black Evangelical Association, I like to refresh for a moment who you are and why we happen to exist. We're about biblical and cultural integrity. We have a commitment to the Word of God, and we are committed to promoting African descendant consciousness and culture. We consist of Black believers who've accepted ourselves as created, loved, and redeemed by God. I think also in this presentation, it's important to recall our values: cross-denominational fellowship, doing theology or understanding God from a Black perspective, ministry to the entire person, working for racial reconciliation and righteousness, and then fellowship across organizations and churches, and encouraging especially blacks that are actually part of higher education. So what is the MBEA? Okay. We entitled this Anointrepreneuring. It's a made-up word, and it really means doing Christ-centered, kingdom of God advancing entrepreneurship. That's actually building churches, ministries, and businesses with a black twist. You know, where we are actually cognizant or aware of the culture, both of the black entrepreneur, but also of the target segment that we choose to minister to. Well, when we talk about that, why am I bringing this to MBEA at this time? Well, the National Black Evangelical Association has been in existence for 54 years. There are many scholars and authors that are a tremendous treasure trove. But as I've written before, it's like a lamp hidden under a basket. Nobody knows. The impact about the organization on the larger community is muted, is negligible. Over the years, a number of people have suggested that there should be a National Black Evangelical University. I'm probably the last person to suggest this. And when I made this suggestion, I was asked to look at what it would take to actually do this, how to implement a Black Evangelical University. In looking at it, I've come up with the idea that the best way to do it is to start out with Anointrepreneuring, helping Black Christians create organizations, churches, and businesses to advance the kingdom of God. Why? Well, it's really interesting to look upon the Black community. The Black community has some of the highest business aspiration rates in the United States. We actually want to open our businesses at 1 or 2 or 3 times that of the average American. But also we have one of the lowest business participation rates. If we get into the churches, mainstream church planting, the church planting organizations like Verge and Send, Acts 29, are aiming at planting churches among the creative class. The people that are moving into the cities, the millennials, the gentrified, creative people, but they're eliminating or missing the indigenous populations of the city. There's no one actually trying to help get churches started intentionally within our community. And then furthermore, the problems of our community are many. We understand that. Our young people are not actively involved in our legacy churches. We have huge problems with unemployment that is twice the average of the United States. And in cities like Chicago, our youth unemployment is over 40%. There are tremendous burdens in trying to integrate people are returning from incarceration or returning citizens. And it goes on and on. We cannot look to anyone else to address our issues. We need to be able to create organizations, ministries, businesses with a consciousness to advance the kingdom of God within our own community, not looking to any other community, not looking to the government, but looking only to our God. Well, the how. My suggestion is the how is we start with a Black Evangelical Graduate School, but we started by partnering with accredited schools that already exist. There's some models of that. The Bakke Graduate University out in Seattle actually is partnered with Payne Theological Seminary. William Seymour College in Maryland is partnering with Ohio Christian University. but we can partner with them as we move forward to getting our own ability to grant degrees. I propose 2 initial degrees, the Master of Divinity and Master of Ministry, or we could call it Masters of Entrepreneuring. For you that don't know, the Master of Divinity is the standard degree for a Protestant minister. It is a practical professional degree. In this case, it would involve not only the classical preparation for a ministry, but also entrepreneurship. Now, we do this also online as a primarily online school, but the school would not just be asynchronous as many online universities are, that we would use technology, i.e. Zoom or other video conferencing, to actually maximize the virtual interaction of our students and supplement that with periodic face-to-face seminars. What are the distinctives? Well, first of all, spiritual formation and practical experience. Too often, seminaries are called cemeteries, where people go to die. But we're here to create life. And one of the first things is to actually focus not on just the development of the mind, but the development of the spiritual person and teaching people how to apply that. We should actually include discipleship, or it's the Christian word for apprenticeship. Apologetics, teaching people how to actually be able to defend their faith. Biblical studies, and then bootstrapping, how to actually bring up an organization, a church, a nonprofit, or even a for-profit business with a social consciousness, with minimal outside funding. And all of this wrapped in a Black cultural competency. Almost like that company, FUBU, for us, by us. It also should include the incubation of the ministries, churches, and businesses that our students have. So instead of just doing what most entrepreneurship programs do, and that is help people write a business plan and say good luck, but actually provide ongoing support and even help with seed funding for the birthing of ministries, churches, and businesses. Well, who are we aiming at? Well, essentially Black Christian entrepreneurial leaders. And it's a variety of people. The Black church is not homogeneous. It's the traditional Black denominations in the Black church, but there are also people that are actually in Black denominations that are traditionally part of the white evangelical church. And then there are the ignored Black evangelicals who actually are the members of the African churches, the Nigerian, Ghanaian, Cameroonian, and Ethiopian churches in America, and then also the Black evangelical leaders in mainline denominations. None of them had this sort of entrepreneurial support that is both Black, spiritual, and biblical. I think that they would be the natural target segment of this organization. When? I started to say as soon as possible, but essentially, anytime within the next couple of years, 2 to 3 years, when we can actually get the organization formally created, solidify the startup funding, get permission from the state to grant degrees, work with the relationships with partner colleges, and recruit our faculty and students. And what do I need from you? Well, I need first of all permission to proceed, permission to go forward with this idea. I need volunteers for the board of intercessors and advisors. Now, when I say intercessors, I'm talking about people who are willing to volunteer to prayerfully seek God and get His insight in helping us move forward. I also need volunteers and recommendations for the trustee board. The board for the college has to be different than the MBA board We need active, real trustees, volunteers to be part of that, or people that are recommended to be part of that. And also I need recommendations on this proposed approach. And let me just end by saying, let's start entrepreneuring. Any questions?
I have a question, if I may. Norman, you said specifically that you didn't want funding to come from the government, and you also spoke about seed funding. Where is that seed funding going to come from? Before we can proceed with this, we need to know that we're not just, so where's the money going to come from, I guess?
There are a couple of obvious places. First of all, since we're focusing on entrepreneurship, there is a real movement among some conservative Christians to support entrepreneurial endeavors. So grantsmanship is part of it. I also am suggesting that we follow the pathway of many nonprofits and reach out to leadership that well-heeled members of corporations who actually have this as a particular passion. For instance, the largest Black business in America is Worldwide Technology Services. The president, David Stewart, wrote a book, Doing Business by the Book being the Bible. They actually have revenue last year, I think, $5.3 billion. There are people like that who actually have achieved quite a bit of fortune through their business endeavors, coupled with their faith, that will be people that we'll be looking at too. But I'd like to mention something else. When I was talking to Dr. McCrae, the president of the National Black Evangelical Association, he thought that I was a little too limited in my vision. He said, Norman, lay this out as if money were not a problem, and we'll work out the finances after you have laid out a plausible solution. And hence I'm going. I was starting by thinking of what could I do? How could we fund it? And he said, no, you don't worry about that. I'll hook up with the people that have the money. You go lay out the plan. Thank you. Anyone else?
Norman, this is David. Do you have an idea of how expensive this would be? What do you expect would be the major expenses?
I think that startup will be probably somewhere between $50,000 and $200,000. I'm really surprised by how regulated education is in the United States. Just for instance, in my state, Maryland, to apply to have permission to give a degree, the application requires a $10,000 fee, a bond for $500,000 bond, and if I get it wrong, I get to resubmit with another $10,000 fee until I get it right. So it grows relatively quickly. The most of the expense, though, is going to be dealing with the regulatory hurdles out front.
Mm-hmm. Norman, a question. In the spirit of making these studies more available to more of the population, what would your thoughts be on having a lower degree be offered, maybe a bachelor's degree or a certificate, so that it can be open to even more people?
I think that's an excellent idea. The question is where to begin. My wife is actually a student in Walden University, which I think has about 60,000 students around the world. Walden started as a PhD-only program, and once they got their footing, then gradually added. looking at MBEA, I have never seen so many scholars in one place, from authors to faculty across the United States. But there's a specialty. It's really in ministry. So if I were to look at where we most likely to be able to get our initial faculty from our own membership, they're going to be focused on basically specific training and not on the kind of widespread coursework that an undergraduate requires. And I see the red. So I think we're over. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you, Norman. Let us move ahead to our next presentation. Next, we'll be hearing from Jim Dent. He's going back to the beginning of the Competent Communicators, Organize Your Speech. I understand this is going to be a presentation he'll be giving at an open house, and his title is, Are You Stepping Out Tonight? Are you stepping out tonight? Jim Dent, you're on.
Thank you. Let me switch over to my share the screen with you. And okay, can everybody see the my
Yes.
desktop now? Great. So are you stepping out tonight? I like creative titles. Has anybody, know anybody, or ever had a situation where you've stuttered? When I was younger, and I began in middle school, I had a severe stuttering problem. I don't know why I started to stutter. I don't know what caused it. But anytime I had to speak in a class in front of other students or read in front of a class, I would stutter, and I would stutter severely. It might take me 5 minutes to get one sentence out. Now, I didn't start off school this way, and I tried to figure out what caused it. I was even sent to several pathologists to try to figure out why I had this speaking problem. Because things that I was comfortable with for 2 or 3 years, I was suddenly now not comfortable with it. I had no problem when I was in younger elementary school getting up and speaking in front of a group of people or a class. But I figured out some possible reasons. And one of those was my comfort zone. I think one of the things I did was I shrunk my comfort zone. What used to be inside my comfort circle, I pushed out into my uncomfort area. Now, I don't know why. Something may have happened to me that affected me psychologically. Or something may have happened within my mind. One possibility I was told was my mind was not in sync with my mouth and my vocal cords, that all three were out of sync with each other. That was a theory. But one of the things I did learn, and this stands today, is once you become an adult or approaching adulthood, 98% of the people never moved out of their established comfort zone. You stay within that comfort zone once you establish it. And only 2% of the people ever try to move out of it. So tonight we're talking about moving out of your comfort zone or stepping out of your comfort zone. Now, what's the reasons people don't step out of their comfort zone? Well, anxiety is one, the fear of public speaking. It could also be the fear of appearing on video, like live video like we're doing tonight. Or you just can't make a choice. Do I want an apple or an orange? Do I want to do this or do I want to do that? Or you're a procrastinator. I'll put it off till tomorrow or sometime in the future. Or you're just plain lazy. You're not even thinking about it. You just rather would just think about something else. So think about anything that you feel uncomfortable about. Why are you uncomfortable about it, and why aren't you doing something about it? Why aren't you taking a step out of that comfort zone? Well, the first thing you got to do to step out of your comfort zone, you got to set yourself a goal. What is it you want to step out and do? In Toastmasters, it may be giving that icebreaker, or it may be joining a Toastmasters online club and committing to joining, taking that first step. Could be other things. It could be something outside of Toastmaster. You want to go back to school to work on, maybe you don't want to get a degree, you just want to take some courses, but you're putting it off. So back in 1969, Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. The famous quote was, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Well, Neil Armstrong did not take a giant leap. That was mankind that took it. Neil Armstrong took one little step. But to get to the moon, he took 1,000 little steps over several years. He didn't just do it overnight. He had to graduate from school. He had to become a pilot. He had to progress himself to become a pilot in steps. So everything he did to prepare himself, which wasn't his goal back then, was a series of little small steps moving out of his comfort zone and using his grit to become stronger and accomplish more items. So think of this as your one small step, whatever you're going to decide to do, that'll be a giant leap for all of Toastmasters. Now again, to get there, a baby starts off crawling or sliding around the floor on his butt usually. Then he starts to crawl on all fours. And eventually he stands up and starts balancing himself, not walking, just maintaining his balance, and then starts walking. Now, he didn't have an uncomfortable zone. He was challenging himself all the time. And he used resilience to improve himself. He never thought once it says, you know, I can't do this, I'm going to give up. A baby will continually move outside its comfort zone in a lot of different aspects. But once you get to a certain age, you seem to draw walls around yourself, and you create a comfort zone that you don't want to step out of. But to get out of a comfort zone, you take baby steps. You don't have to make a giant leap. Michael Jordan once said, "Don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid not to try." And I think that's a very important quote relative to comfort zones, because many people are afraid to move out because they're afraid to fail, which is one of the things I've always said is the fear of public speaking. It's not that they're afraid to speak. They're afraid to sound silly or fail or be criticized. Because if they knew they wouldn't fail or they wouldn't be criticized or be made fun at, they'd get right up there and speak. But you should be afraid for not trying, because you'll never learn anything new if you don't try. That's the only way you can learn any new skill. You're constantly learning in Toastmasters. Every time you get up and do a speech or practice a functionary role or do a new topic speech, you're learning a new skill and you're trying. You're never failing, even when you maybe missed all the objectives. You did try and you learned from that. Einstein once said, Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is insanity. When I was younger, my uncle tried to teach me how to hammer fine finishing nails into cabinetry. Well, I'd grab the nail with my finger and thumb and I'd hit it with a hammer. Well, of course, I hit my finger and thumb too, because the nails were short. So I held the nail a little bit different and I tried it again. Well, sure enough, I'd hit my thumb and finger again. And then the third time, I'd do it again. So I realized I'm using the wrong method and I'm trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. What I want to end this with you is to step outside your comfort zone. Set outside goals. If you can't set one goal, make it a little step outside, like just your toe outside your comfort zone instead of taking a giant step. Take those baby steps. Have some grit. Yep. Have the courage to step outside that comfort zone. And that takes grit. Have the resiliency not to be afraid to fail, to recover quickly and be flexible with how small your steps are. So, are you stepping out tonight? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim.
Let's see, how do I get this back? Here we go. Trying to think, how do I cancel it now?
No. Oh, let's see.
You take it back.
No.
I think there should be an option at the top where it is stop sharing screen.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
There we
That's
go.
the one.
Okay. All right. We're back to our Hollywood Squares view, or at least I am. So let's see. Let me just ask our timer. I think both of our speakers may have run over. Is that correct, Mahi?
Yeah, that's correct, David. So Norman's was 11 minutes and 23 seconds, and Jim's was 9 minutes and 27 seconds.
Okay. All right. So we're. I guess we're not going to vote since they both technically disqualified themselves from being our speaker of the day, but they also shared some great information with us. And now Graham is on to lead us through the always anticipated, sometimes dreaded table topics portion of our meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the problems when you have a tight agenda like tonight in a club is you have to decide whether you're going to give your table topics to guests to try to encourage them to get involved, or to members since they've actually paid their money and are members and therefore should be entitled to speak at a meeting, because everybody comes to a Toastmasters meeting to speak, not to sit there and not do anything. Tonight, I'm sorry, members, you're not going to get a chance to speak because we only have time for one table topic, and that is Carmen, who is a guest, who is going to, for up to 2 minutes, tell us why she would like to be a member of this club. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a putative member of Online Presenters Toastmasters Club, Carmen.
Thank you, Mr. Tabletop Master. And thank you for this invitation to speak to the club on why I would like to join. And today is my second time visiting the club, and I am excited about having this opportunity to express my interest to all of you. I would like to join because I really enjoy the online format. And I am building my own speaking and training business through which I provide my services not only in person but also online. I would like to continue to work on my skills to present even more strongly every time, to be able to structure my messages even better, and for more impact to my audience. I would like to offer to share with you everything that I learned during this journey, including, for example, this book that I picked up recently, $1 Million Speaking. And one of the tips that I'd like to share about that I just learned in the first chapter of this book is to agree with your client when you go to speak to a group. What is it that they would really like to get? What is the objective that they would really like to get from your speaking to their group? So I thought that was a very powerful idea. And I'm happy to share that with you tonight. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Table Topic Master. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. And just to clarify, you're currently working towards online presenting for a career, but you are, what is your Toastmasters experience? Are you actually a Toastmaster at this stage? And if so, what level are you at?
Yes, so I first joined Toastmasters 16 years ago, and I completed the Competent Communicator book.
We needed answers.
Yes, I also started an advanced book that I look forward to continuing to work on.
Cool. Excellent, thank you. So this doesn't have to go to the board, was the question that I'm asking. You are eligible to be a member. So this is where the vote counter will actually have a job to do. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can please send a private message to the vote counter, and the vote counter tonight was Lou, I believe.
No, it was Scott. Scott took over.
Scott, send a private message to Scott saying whether you would like to see Carmen's membership agreed to by this club. And that's all the time we have for Table Topics tonight, Mr. Toastmaster, because we are now at 8:45 Florida time, which is 2 minutes into the event.
All right. Thank you very much, Graham, and thank you for keeping us honest in terms of our timing as well. The format we've been following for the past few weeks is that the Toastmaster of the Day goes ahead and calls on the evaluators. We've discussed changing that, but Deborah, as general evaluator, you'll get to bat cleanup and let us know what the other evaluators and functionaries didn't pick up on. So you get to share some wisdom at the end. But first of all, we're going to hear from Lois Margolin, who will be evaluating Norman.
Master of the Day. My fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and especially Norman. This was a really interesting speech. You had me going the entire time. For those of you who are not aware, the purpose of the speech is to provide a service or course of action, and using the inverted pyramid, which means he tells his idea here, and then he kind of narrows it down and explains to us why he's proposing what he's proposing. I love the idea that you introduced us as the Black Board of Directors. You made sure we knew what our role was before you started all of this, because otherwise some of us, including me, would have been very confused on this. I loved your who, what, where, when, and how. You had an action plan. And I looked at this as this was more of a proposal of what you wanted to do. And it took me a while as I kept reworking my notes to figure out, okay, I understand where you were going. You started out with a viewpoint. Our impact on the community is negligible. I would have liked a little more like anger in that. You want to provide ongoing support and help birth Black churches and businesses. You want to help build a society. Basically, this entire speech was, how do you do this? Well, you're going to do this with the board of directors' help. That was the piece I missed throughout because I never really heard you say, here's how we're going to do this. I thought your ideas on how you were going to go through the education was actually how you were going to do it. We are going to educate. We are going to make sure that the Black population gets the education necessary to have ministers, to have the Masters of Divinity, and all of that. And all of this is going to help naturally raise up the Black population. In my mind, that's how it actually came out. There are a couple things that I would have done that perhaps you might want to consider to make this a little bit stronger. Your screens were a tad busy. Usually what you want to do if you're going to do a PowerPoint is show something up there and talk about it more than just have a lot of words up there, because I found myself reading, and then I started copying. I'm going, oh my gosh, what are they doing? So be careful how much you have on there. You also quoted a lot of statistics. You said 2 to 3 times the blacks want to open up their own business. Where are you getting these statistics from? No one is trying to get churches started. Where are you getting the stats from? The youth is not actively involved, and they have large unemployment. I think we all know that, but the way this was presented, I possibly would have considered having more quotable items. If you're going to tell me that it's 2 to 3 times, where did you get that information? You were trying to sell people to become part of this organization. The more detail you have, if you're going to go through and tell me the who, what, where, when, why, then your other pieces should have a little more definition to it. Overall, it was well done. Consider a budget. And you know what? I think you'll actually get your board of directors. Great job, Norman. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, excellent. So our next evaluator, Christian, will be giving some feedback to Jim Dent. Christian, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Jim, you did step out tonight, my friend. Congratulations. You told me that to be in the 2% of the people, of the adult population in the world, you need to step out, you need to have the grit, and you need to have resilience. Thank you for such a powerful message. Jim, you had a topical and a problem solution outline. So you had 2 outlines instead of 1. That was well done. You shared the problems that adults have by not stepping out. You started with your own story, and then you moved on to the different aspects. You also had something that was not required in your project, visuals. And when I was looking at the visuals, I saw a story. I saw the story of your life. I saw the story of my life, because I've been stepping out, just like you, out of my comfort zone. And then you moved on to something which also was not required in your message, but was very powerful. You added the what's in it for me when I was listening to you. You added the Toastmasters combination. Step out as a Toastmaster. Join an online Toastmasters club. You will be in the 2%, which I think everyone here wants to be, where we want to be. Now, Jim, there's always room for improvement, and I'm going to share a couple of recommendations for you, which I hope will take your speech to that level you want to reach. My first recommendation is you started with a very powerful story, my friend. Stuttering. And I was looking at the screen. Everyone was waiting for you to give more on that story. You left me hanging. As you were closing, I was expecting you to go back to that story. And you didn't do that. So I'm very sad there. So maybe I look forward to that story in your next speech. But having a story that goes full circle from start to finish is a very powerful carrier for the kind of message you're sharing. My second recommendation is at the conclusion, because you had a strong opening with a question. You had very, very interesting facts, especially with the visuals and the quotes. And at the conclusion, I was expecting one message. You left me with 3 powerful messages, especially in the last slide. That's too much for me, especially at 4 in the morning. But nevertheless, I'm taking the example. I'm taking my baby steps. Yes, mother just dumped him in my lap, because baby steps is what is going to make us get out of our comfort zone. Baby steps was the message for me. Baby steps is what Toastmasters is all about. Congratulations, my friend. Please try to follow the recommendations, and I'm sure you will rock the floor in your forthcoming delivery. Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Christian.
Please excuse me, I need to go on, baby.
That's okay. Priorities, absolutely. Please send Scott your vote for best or most improved evaluator of the day as well. And we'll ask for some other reports. And we start with our grammarian, Carol Prahinsky.
I heard some beautiful words today. Thank you, Lois, for disambiguating, I think was how you phrased it, David. Disambiguating. I didn't know it was, is that proper?
It is according to Wikipedia. That's what they say
Oh, well,
when you're trying to sort out between two different articles. They'll disambiguate things. Yes.
But as a verb? Okay.
It is now.
Norman had some beautiful word choices. I heard tremendous treasure trove. Nice alliteration, Norman. And seminaries are called cemeteries. Again, beautiful, beautiful word choices. Nice sound bites. We can capture that and send it off to some news media. You're going to be famous and in the news. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Let's hear from our watcher. Was that Lou was the watcher?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Toastmaster. Okay, we'll go right down the list. Monica, where are you, Monica? I'm trying to look for you now. Oh, there you are, Monica. Monica, I noticed your camera looks like it might be down and looking up at you. So it'd be nice if your camera could be a little bit more aligned with your face so we could see more of you. Christian, at times, oh, it looks like Christian's gone. We'll skip him. Norman, I love the fact that you have the blue background. Excellent on that. Your face does look a bit washed, but more importantly, when you were giving your speech, I noticed you weren't looking at the camera as much as either some notes or some other thing. So I think for all of our speakers, whenever you're delivering a speech, whether it's table topics or anything, please try to look directly at the camera. Carmen, also excellent use of a background that's clean and crisp. I myself, as well as some other folks, have different things going on back here, so it's a little distracting. I love the plain backgrounds. And Jay Lynn, it's a little hard to see your face, my friend. It looks very dark, so I think you need some lighting. And some other folks, simply look at the Hollywood squares and you'll see where several of us are washed out, myself included. I don't have professional lighting here, so I need to work on that. That's it, Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. General Evaluator, whatever role you're in right now. Sure.
All right. Let's see. And who took Chat Monitor? I think we did pick up somebody for that. We have a Chat Monitor. Maybe we wound up.
I think that was me as well. Sorry, no, that was me as well. I only picked up on a couple things besides a lot of humor going back and forth. One is learning more what an accredited speaker is. So if you go back and save the chat or look in the early part of the chat, you'll see information about what an accredited speaker is. And also some folks were wondering how to pin the speaker as well as have the timer both be on the screen at the same time. I had some suggestions, but I'm not sure if they work perfectly. They worked for me, but maybe there's an educational moment that this calls for how to do that particular exercise. And that was the major substance of the chat, Mr. GE.
All right. Let's call on our Owl Hunter as well.
Okay, I didn't hear too many ahs tonight. David, you had a few, and Lou, you had a couple. But what I did hear were two excellent examples of well-placed pauses, and that would be Lois and Jim Dent. Really good pauses. That's it.
All right. May we have our timers report? Mahi, you already gave us the speakers, but do you want to give us for the other roles?
Yeah. So Carmen was 1 minute and 59 seconds, just a second short of in her table topics. And Louis's evaluation was 3 minutes and 16 seconds. And Christian's evaluation was 2 minutes and 50 seconds. That's all I got.
Okay. And Deborah, I saw something about you were having some technical problems, or did you?
I'll take care of it. She's having technical problems, and she's asked me to step in.
Okay.
So I came in at the last minute. I'm going to call it last minute. It wasn't last minute, but it was nearby. My suggestion for tonight, I love tonight's meeting. Great participation by many people online. I think we got just about everyone, not everyone, but a lot of us. I would like us in the future to make sure that we don't duplicate roles. We have a great turnout. I think it's very appropriate for us to invite other people, especially if they have been a Toastmaster or are experiencing Toastmasters, that they can fill in on some of the easier roles. And I'd like to encourage us to encourage them to sign up and be very specific when we ask. So you could say something like, Scott, I think you would make a great, and you can fill in the blank, and he signs up and he says, yes, I'd be thrilled to do that. Thank you, Scott. Back to you, Mr. President.
All right, excellent. Let's ask for some feedback from some of our guests, some of our visitors tonight. Joe, I'm sorry.
Just before we do, Mr. President, there is one role that we haven't heard back from, and that is the vote counter, which Scott stepped in to do.
That is correct. Scott.
Well, I'll give the feedback on the votes I've received for Best Evaluator, and at the present time it stands at 3-3 to Lois and 3 to Christian. So
well, that means you have to break the tie, my friend.
I'm sorry, Lois. I'm going to have to go with Christian. I know it's a tough word. Yeah, okay. But the rest is all private.
Excellent. Joe, I was going to ask what you thought of our meeting tonight.
It was a great meeting. I really liked the online aspect of it and how well it flowed. This is my first time with an online version of the meeting, so it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
All right, terrific. Johnny, would you like to give us your thoughts?
Sure, I'd love to. Again, my first time here. A couple of things I'm looking forward to learning about particularly the timing, the timer, how I'll be able to see that in the future. Tonight we had those cards. That was very helpful to have the cards. That was unique. And of course, the speeches tonight I thought were excellent, both of them, with the screen sharing and all that. I'm looking forward to learning more about this. Thanks for having me tonight.
Excellent. And you put your finger on one of our challenges is keeping track of the timer with all these little video images. Sometimes that can be difficult. One thing that Arlene has done on a number of occasions is she'll also have an audible cue. So if you don't see the timer, she'll use a little tap on a wine glass. So I think that is I consider that to be a best practice, because sometimes people do
I like
not.
it.
Yes, that's right. And one of the challenges we have too, I guess, is we're virtual, so it's not like we have equipment we can pass around to people. You have to go find your own wine glass and your own knife to tap against it.
Right.
And you just got to rough it that way. Michael, what did you make of this meeting?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for having me. It was quite interesting and informative, and I'm really looking forward to maybe joining as a guest for another future meeting.
All right.
And yeah, looking forward. It's very nice. Thank you.
Excellent. Monica?
Yes, thanks for having me tonight. And I definitely have some questions for Lois about some of the logistics maybe, and I'll email her to find out some details before I ask to join.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're going to ask Carmen, because I don't think she's going to be a guest for very much longer. But it was great to hear from you tonight, Carmen, about why you think this would be worthwhile. And so I have, it's Jaylyn 5000, I see, who I think wasn't here for the whole meeting, but joined us near the end. And I think you've been here at least once before. Can you unmute yourself, and do you want to say a few words? It's the button. There we go.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed myself since I've gotten started to participate with the online programs. Even though I did come in late, I did pick up a lot of good stuff, and I'm looking forward to continue to be a guest if it's okay.
You're welcome to come back. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
See, I did have one small bit of business to discuss, and I brought this up with some of the officers. When we first started, we were collecting a little bit of money in excess of what we had to pay for Toastmasters International dues. It was supposed to be a club fund, and originally the idea was that we would build up a contingency fund in case we lost our deal with Ring Central, and we had more expenses, and for reasons mostly having to do with logistical difficulties setting up a bank account for this club. Because we're not considered a U.S. entity, we can't have a U.S. bank account. I've continued to be acting as the bank for the club, basically. The funds have been sitting in my account. We eventually decided not to collect any funds except for the dues and what we needed to cover just the online service transaction fees. But I do have a small pot of money. It's about $100. 103.12 is what I calculated that we have available. I propose to do a small Facebook advertising campaign to try and promote these educational events that are coming up. And part of the idea there is to use those as a recruiting vehicle to show people that we are doing a special program in this club, and try and get some more people in the door. So, Facebook advertising is an interesting way of targeting people based on what they've expressed an interest in. And you can run a small campaign for about $100. But I just want to disclose that to folks that that's what I'm planning to do. I don't know whether it needs a vote of the whole board. I think I've polled most of the board members, but as long as everybody feels comfortable with that, that is my plan.
David,
yes.
Technically, it does need a member vote, and so we can propose it as a motion. But my suggestion is we've announced it tonight, so let's plan to maybe vote on it next week. And you could also send it out in the email to communicate that this is what we're planning to do.
Okay. You're proposing it for next week because we don't have enough members here tonight, or
no? Or it's supposed to. Something like this, you're supposed to give notice to all members so that they have time to reflect and think about it.
That's fine.
Or ask additional questions on the side if they want.
That is just fine. It's not anything that's a rush. Yeah. Okay.
Dave, were you planning on promoting the Johnny Campbell event? Because that is.
Well, yeah, that is, but that's okay. We can. I think we could pick it up after that, and we could promote the fact that we have this package of educational programs, and the people can go back and watch the replay of Johnny Campbell as well. So I think that's not really a major consideration. With that, let me just also ask, I think most of the other roles for next week are filled. Adrian, I actually have you down as Toastmaster of the Day. Is that okay? I think that's because you signed up for the originally it was supposed to be the September 11th date.
Yes, that is correct. That's fine.
That's fine. Okay.
Yes.
I guess we need an eye counter. Anybody want to be eye counter next week?
Scott?
Yeah, I'm just unmuting myself. I'd love to.
All right.
So put me down as the eye counter.
All right. Somebody's got to do some damage there. And we may have we do have somebody down. We have a Robert Owens down to do Topics Master. I'm going to talk with Johnny more tomorrow about whether he thinks, he's going to really take up the bulk of the hour, or whether he'd rather do like a half hour and we could still have time for table topics. So some of that is still being finalized. I'm actually going to do an online meeting like this with him tomorrow to make sure he understands how the software works and all that, and also record a little promo. So with that, I think we're in good shape for today. And thank you all for attending. Have a great week, everyone.
Good night.
Great meeting. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.